Hi, I'm Kenzie Fell, producer and co-host of McGohan Brabender's podcast channel, Side Effects. Today, we welcome back a friend to McGohan Brabender who was a guest on our show a few months ago. Kristi Dinsmore is an organizational consultant and coach who specializes in leadership development, talent management, and succession planning. Lately, she has been advising leaders and companies on how to manage the largest generation in the United States labor force, Millennials, and drive profitable growth. Previously, we discussed how Millennials are impacting the workplace and why developing Millennials and their older siblings, Generation X, is so important. Today, we will be discussing the topic of entitlement, an issue that is impacting organizations and our culture in general. Specifically, how it's not just about millennials, but how an entitlement mentality is impacting our society in general. We are intrigued to dive deeper into this topic. Without further delay, Kristi Dinsmore.
I'm Scott McGohan.
I'm Kenzie Fell.
And I'm Anne-Marie Singleton.
Now, I think even for our listeners, too, I think what's important is we might be right, we might be wrong. But one thing is, we're not afraid.
Our goal is to get you to think about things a little differently.
And we're unscripted. We just have free reign for 20 minutes.
Welcome to Side Effects with an A. Kenzie, welcome.
Hi, Scott. How are you today?
Great. And we have a guest, Kristi. Thanks for coming back.
Always for McGohan Brabender.
Yeah, and
Yes.
this is an interesting topic. And hopefully we can help our listeners maybe just think differently about this big word called entitlement.
And to make sure that it's not glued to the millennials and that generation, it's impacting all of us.
Amen.
Yeah, because I think the mindset is normally it's somebody else's problem. And I think what you're going to help us understand, it's everyone's problem.
And everyone is feeling very entitled. It's really negatively impacting our society, and it's creating so much anger right now. And we're seeing it come out in social media, in society in general. And so we have to address this. And organizations have to address it too.
So, jumping right in, how is entitlement a problem in today's world? Why are we talking about this?
It's interesting. Just within the last few months, we've had some historical anniversaries. The anniversary of D-Day, 75th anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo landing. And there's all this nostalgia for that time where everybody pulled together. We were all moving towards one goal. Now we're in a situation where it's really become about the individual and not about society in general. So entitlement's really coming up because we're hearing all these things like the college scandal where, parents were trying to get their kids into colleges, behind the scenes and illegally and paying for that as opposed to their child earning it. We're also having employees in companies that are saying, I want, I deserve, I need. But it's not just millennials, it's a lot of people. So this is coming up a lot with my clients of, oh my gosh, everyone feels entitled. What do we do about this?
Do entitlement programs mess with people's minds? So it's a lot of times people will say entitlement. They'll think of entitlement programs. So versus the term entitlement. Does that confuse people?
I think it does a little bit when you use that piece about entitlement programs, but think about what those programs were originally created to do was to stop the problems of poverty and having children that were raised in environments that weren't going to maximize their talents. And then suddenly we called it an entitlement. And what that tells us is, well, I'm owed it. Entitlement, just by its nature, talks about I'm entitled to that. It's interesting if you look at the Declaration of Independence, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed with rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's not about you're entitled to happiness, it's about the pursuit. So what's changed in our society that's causing people to believe, I don't really have to work for it anymore. I'm entitled to it. I should have it just because I'm here. So kind of looking at some of the things that have driven that, we have a consumer economy right now. Everything is about the consumer spending. We used to have more of a manufacturing economy where it was about making things that we were selling all over the world. Now A lot of it is restaurants. A lot of it is entertainment. People believing I should be able to go out and spend my money doing this. What's kind of frightening is the consumer debt is now getting up to where it was right before that last Great Recession back in 2008.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just traveling this past weekend, and I've traveled a lot in my 25 years of life, but I feel like the airports are so crowded. Everyone's traveling. The cheaper flights are so available now. And so you kind of feel like you have the right to fly wherever you want now. It's not like you pack up in the car and do your road trips anymore. It's, I'm going to fly to Chicago because it's much easier. It's affordable. And I want to go. So it's just crazy to think like how even in the last 10 years that's changed so much.
Well, and Scott, you and I can think back to, you didn't think about when you were in your 20s that you were going to go to Europe or go to South America or go to Asia and just hop on a plane. That was a big trip that, you know, most times you thought, well, I'll do that when I'm retired or when I have more money.
Right.
It's wonderful that we're traveling the world and we're meeting different people and experiencing different cultures. I think that's creating a big piece of diversity and welcoming diversity, and it's really enriched our country, food, music, arts, etc. But it's, wow, I should be able to do this in my 20s as opposed to waiting.
You know what's interesting? You bring it up, and you bring up flight, which is really interesting because when I go there, I'll look at, okay, what zone am I in? So I can check in and spend $15, which I'm not going to pay for, to go to zone 1 to get on first.
Yeah.
And then I sit there and it's, okay, if I'm a platinum member, I get on first. And then there's new colors, like I'm just picking one, aqua, you know, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, like, can we just get on the plane?
Well, but if anybody has traveled recently, they're trying to make those lines because people are just swarming to get on board.
Oh.
As opposed to saying, oh, you know, I'll wait in line, I'll be patient. It's everyone wants to be on first. And I always say, the plane is not leaving until everybody's on board.
It's a fight to the death to get in line, and you don't, like, families will try to cut you, and you're like, go ahead, like we're all going the same place, we'll get there at the same time.
Well, I say that because it's a great marketing strategy.
Oh,
It's almost like when you didn't have to pay for bags. You pay for bags. I mean, one of the biggest profit centers inside of the airline industry is the fact that they charge you for bags. So they're going to charge me $20 for 6 extra inches for my feet. And a fast pass to get on the plane. It's just it's a mindset. And marketing social media plays a big role.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at marketing, one of the things that sets my hair on fire was when I hear a marketer say, "You deserve." Not you can afford, not this will help your life, but you deserve this. And when you look at the commercial, it's definitely something that they don't necessarily deserve at that time. But we keep hearing that. And when that goes into people's minds, I don't care what age you are, you start to say, you're right, I do. I deserve 6 more inches. I deserve, I fly a lot. I deserve to get on the plane before everyone else does.
Oh, yeah.
I deserve to have the overhead bin all to myself and put my things in there. So that's really a problem. We also have things where the message is going out, we're going to eliminate your credit card debt.
That'd be nice.
When I grew up, that was something that you absolutely did. If you were in debt, you paid off your debt. That was a sense of honor. It was a sense of, your moral compass. But now it's, well, we'll just reduce that. That can just go away. Or even more frightening, we have politicians that are saying, well, we're going to forgive all of your college debt. Now, as somebody who paid all my debt in full on time,
That's
that
not
bothers
super
me.
fair to you,
That's
no.
not super fair. But when you're getting something in return, why would you assume that you would not have to pay for it? And that's an entitlement mentality that I should have this even if I can't afford it.
Exactly.
And you bring up a good point. I mean, one thing is like, so we bring up this word and people say millennials, and we said, hey, that wasn't, we're not talking about millennials because I'm Gen X, or we're really close to a baby boomer.
Same here.
But the fact of the matter is, like, we play a big part in this mentality, our mindset.
Yeah, how does the Gen X play a part?
Well, if you think back historically, You had that World War II situation where everybody was bought in. We were all, supporting the troops, supporting victory, sacrificing wherever it could. Once that ended and we won, there was this consumer boom of pent-up demand from the war and from the Great Depression. So our parents were the ones that said, we're going to go do things. We're going to make sure we're going to take care of our kids. We've gone through this terrible time. And they raised us much more lavishly, even though it was probably a small house, Scott, that you were living in at the time, much more lavishly than they were raised because they wanted to celebrate and take care of their kids.
Right.
That set in our minds an attitude of that's what we should continue to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about the 60s, Vietnam was still a war that there was a draft. But you now hear about a lot of people who were getting their sons out of having to go fight.
Right.
So it wasn't we're all in anymore. It's, well, my kids deserve to not have to go. That's a huge change from that greatest generation.
Parenting has a major role
Mm-hmm.
in entitlement through all of the ages.
Mm-hmm.
I think about grandparents a lot too, because I know we've talked about this, Scott, how why couldn't you have your grandchildren first? Because you get to spoil them. And
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, they now is the time they think, let me take care of my grandkid and give them everything they want.
And you go into these houses and all of a sudden the entire living room is toys.
Yeah.
And more toys and more toys and more toys. That's hard to back off from because you want to make them happy. You want to have that joy. But what are we creating in those kids? They're not having to work for things the way that they used to. And so it's not a millennial thing. It's we're doing it. Grandparents are doing it. So the boomers are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk to your customers, right,
Mhm.
your clients, and you talk to employers, and they say this is a big problem, what do you hear when you hear those comments? Like, this is a problem.
They talk about employees of all ages come in and they want the pay that they've heard about that's on the coasts, the East Coast or the West Coast. Now, we're in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Cost of living is not quite that high, but they say, well, this is what this job is going for. One of the biggest ones, though, is I should have freedom of my schedule. Why do I have to be in here at 7:30 or 8 o'clock? And please do not be in the parking lot when it's 5 p.m. because it's like a, derby of all the cars coming out of the parking lot at the same time. You will get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, you're salaried. Why are you acting like you're hourly?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're feeling like, okay, we're not getting the work that we believe we're paying for. On the other hand, every age group in my clients, people are saying, I don't want to stay late.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to work on the weekends. I want to go and have a life. So this is really hard for organizations because those of us sitting here right now, we could raise our hands and say, I'd like a life too. But we have organizations that are designed to help customers, and customers are 24/7. So that's a real issue that we're going to have to deal with within organizations. Organizations have really done a very poor job, and quite a few of them, probably not everyone, but explaining to their employees everything they provide for them.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, one of the big ones is medical insurance. That so many employees don't realize that their companies are paying the largest portion of that actual premium cost. They think, oh, my insurance costs X. No, it costs X times 10 probably.
Well, I liked your example that you talk about John Patterson, if you want to go into depth about that.
Yes.
And how he's the perfect example of this situation. So,
Well, there's a lot of negativity towards capitalism right now, which capitalism is simply someone is using their money to create something, they're taking risk, and they expect to get some kind of reward. Well, in the Dayton area, NCR, John Patterson, he really was the father of human resources and employee benefits. Now, he did this because he wanted his employees to be the best they possibly could be so that there weren't defects the customer was taken care of.
mm-hmm.
But what was interesting in doing some research on him, You would expect, I mean, the founder of NCR.
To be wealthy.
Yeah, to have, when he passed away, that he would have left an estate, that he have left a lot of money. That wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
He had actually invested his wealth in creating benefits for his employees.
Amazing.
But we don't know that.
Yeah, Dale Carnegie has a quote, and he sold Carnegie Steel for $400 million in like 1913.
Ooh, wow.
But he says that he who dies a rich man is a poor man.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think of Carnegie Mellon, you think of all that. And you're exactly right in regards to capitalism, that unfortunately it's a four-letter word today in a lot of people's eyes. And it's not fair and it's not true. There are a lot of risk takers out there that supply a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That their homes are on the line. They hold all the risk. They reap the reward, but the majority of them do not fill their trunks full of money and drive home and put it in their house. What they do is they reinvest it back in more employees and more jobs. And now, of course, there are some that are kind of the shenanigans of all that.
Mm-hmm.
But for some of us, we watch that and you say, well, I deserve that too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And sometimes it's just like, you got to earn your stripes. Like, you got to work.
Well, in a lot of companies you'll have, if it's a family owned, a company that's not public with shareholders but actually has, investors, the employees that are management become very angry because they're like, why does the senior person, end up with more money than I do? I said, because they put their money in and they put it at risk. I can't name names, but during that last recession, I do have clients that used their money to pay payroll when the sales weren't coming in because they were taking care of their employees. Unfortunately, I can't name the names of the companies, but they haven't even told their own employees that.
Mm-hmm.
So by not educating people about the cost of business and the investment in the welfare of those employees, which is what John Patterson did, when we're not educating and talking about that investment, we're the ones that are creating these employees, these citizens who truly feel entitled. They just think that this is going to happen. There's no investment being made in them.
And that brings us to a topic too of like gratitude and how do you express that? How do you even know that they're investing into you? And how do you learn gratitude?
Well, you can't be grateful for something that you don't know you're really getting.
Right.
I had an individual, very, very smart young man, and he was very angry because his health premium had gone up. And it had gone up a minuscule amount. And you all would know probably better than anyone at McGohan Brabender about what healthcare costs. And he was very upset. And I said, well, you do understand that you're not paying the majority of that premium. And he said, well, yes, I do. I pay it every month. I said, no, there's a portion that the company is paying. I mean, a family plan for insurance runs somewhere between $20,000 to $25,000 a year. That employee was not paying that money.
Yeah, we find that a lot. It's funny. I told my dad a long time ago, I walked into his office. I said, hey, this isn't fair. I'm on commission. You take the largest part of it, and then I have to pay the government like 35%. And he said this, and I love this because I needed to hear this. He goes, look, I got a solution for you. I go, what's that? And he goes, just don't sell anything. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to split. I was like, it was like
That's
jackpot.
Patism for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Just drop the bomb. So you talk about other things like in regards, I love even one of the things that on here, and you were talking about people borrowing like Netflix passwords and Apple, iTunes passwords, and the fact that some of us feel like, no. Like, I paid for that. Like, I'm not allowed to share that. And no, I wouldn't borrow your password. So where does that come from?
When the internet came out, the internet is a wonderful thing. I mean, I was this morning looking up some quotes and that sort of thing. But we believe that the internet is free now. And so when companies, news organizations, newspapers started to put things online, they didn't charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was going to drive people to buy more papers, buy more magazines. That's not what happened. So we've created a world where information is free.
Could you imagine if you had to pay to Google something? I would have no money and I would know nothing.
But you have organizations, if you go to CNN, yeah, there's some ads at the side, but you don't really pay attention to it. They're pulling all that news from other organizations. And so now you have things like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times that are being approached by companies to say, why don't you just do the news gathering and we'll pay you for it?
Right.
So that they can have the most content. But we believe, like who reads a paper anymore? We just pull it up online, but we're not really paying for it.
And I don't think a lot of people, and I know we kind of have to move on to what are the solutions are, but I don't think a lot of people understand, like it's free, but we are paying something. We are leaving our DNA trail everywhere we go. And that's the asset they get. And it is a huge asset. It's not free.
Well, and it perpetuates the problem because the more they know, if Kenzie looks at something online, they're gathering data. And so they're going to send more ads to her about those items. And one of them, she's going to go, you know what? I really do want that.
Yep.
You have things, people might be looking at cars. And so they're going to send ads for that. Then they're going to start to send, do you want a loan? I'm shocked that loans now go out to 72 months.
Yeah, when I read that stat, I was like, there's no way you'd want to pay 6 years because you can't afford it. Why would you do that? But it's an option now. So.
But I deserve it. And so now the cars have all these safety things and the cars are just more expensive. So they've gotten smart. They don't show you the lowest model.
Right.
But people want that vehicle. They want it to look good. And we kind of push that all off. What I'm really worried about is, are people saving? But no, the economy is going to be continuing to go well, which it will for a while. We have a lot of good things in our economy, but that I deserve to have this. I deserve to have a $5 cup of coffee every morning. So this is what's coming into our organizations every day. This is the people that we're meeting on the street, or I should say the people that are almost running us over because they're running red lights because they believe I shouldn't have to stop. My task, my errand, my appointment is more important than yours.
And your safety.
Yeah. And then, come on, we can all raise our hands. That sign along the side of the highway that has a number on it, it's not a suggestion.
It's a recommendation.
Oh,
It's a law.
but we all do this, and it's eroding our sense of civic duty. What is fascinating here in Dayton is we've had the tornadoes, we had the tragic shooting in the Oregon district, but what it did is it brought this community together. And you're seeing people really sacrifice for others. And that's really where we're going to start to get that energy back of, I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to sacrifice. It's not about me and what I want. It's, are we taking care of other people?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, too, so you say the word entitlement, and I'd replace it with the word ignorance. And I've heard the word ignorance is defined as ignorance is not the absence of information, it's the perception you have it.
Ooh.
So when you talk about solutions for your customers, and so how do we remove these barriers of entitlement? And I think a lot of your recommendations are really about, you need to lean in your workforce and communicate with them in a different way.
Well, we've really made our workforces very, very, narrow, and there's just not the extra manpower that we used to have, particularly in human resources. A lot of times people are coming into a company and no one sits down with them and truly explains the cost of them to the company.
Right.
Not their salary, not their benefits, but what the company is providing for them. I do have clients that are doing benefit sheets now, and they truly lay out everything. People don't understand that the company pays a portion of Medicare and Social Security. That doesn't show up on your paycheck. So to really educate them coming in to say, this is what we're providing for you, this is what we're providing for you, this is what we're providing for you. But the next piece is, and this is what we expect you to do so we can take care of our customers. Because if you don't add that customer piece, they're just thinking, well, why is it important? It's important because everyone is a customer to someone. If you want to be well cared for, make sure you're caring for your customers. So that education piece up front, but then managers have to keep reminding people, reminding them of the cost of business, reminding them the cost of errors, reminding them of the things that they could be doing for their company and for the customer. If we're thinking about other people, we tend to put more time and effort into it.
Exactly. I think you'd be more appreciative too. And I know, obviously, coming into MB, we are an employee benefits company, so it was laid out very clearly what MB was offering us. And it made me appreciate the company even more. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea this is what you're investing into me. And it makes me feel like I want to work harder for you to provide to our community and our customers and coworkers.
But Kenzie, when you joined the company, you were grateful because you were getting things you hadn't had before.
Right.
But you told me a story about what happens when you've been here for a while.
Oh, yeah, we discussed this. I said, there's a giant bowl of mints and chocolates at the front door. And what if one day we walked in and they were gone? I would be very sad. I know that. I expect that. And I feel bad now looking back on it. I'm like, that's such a perk. Even that we've discussed before, there's toilet paper in the bathroom. They give us fresh fruit on Mondays. Like, if those things were gone, people would be upset. And you shouldn't be. You should be grateful that you have it right then. And if it's gone, you should not expect it to be there every Monday, you know?
We'll keep the mints and the Hershey Kisses.
Good job.
Please keep the mints.
I wish everybody started in a true startup.
Oh,
because
yes.
in a startup, people are bringing toilet paper into work because you can't afford it yet. And every single thing you get, you're grateful for. Like, wow, we have air conditioning instead of fans. Oh my gosh, we're now paying part of the health care. Oh, there's such gratitude. But over time, we want a bigger adrenaline hit. We want something more. And what we need to start learning is to be grateful for what we have now. That's a manager's job to really be pointing that out. I'm grateful for the people I work with. I'm grateful that we have air conditioning, particularly this summer. Grateful that healthcare is available. Instead of, oh, well, they've got a better cube than I do.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing, too, is, I think for leaders, too, is, it's the small stuff. So in a lot of organizations, if you got to take out the trash, take out the trash.
Yes.
You got to pick up a leaf on the floor, pick up a leaf on the floor. If there's a mess, clean it up. In other words, there's a lot of people that think, well, other people do that. No, they don't.
No.
They don't. And if you can be gracious enough to lean in and do those things, because sometimes when we enable people, that's when we entitle people, and we think
Absolutely.
It's love. It's actually really selfish.
And we're crippling them because now they kind of, it's like, oh, there's water in the bathroom. Wow. Take a paper towel, wipe it off of the counter,
Yes.
and leave the bathroom the way you found it. Do not get me started about the number of times I've walked into a bathroom and the toilet paper rolls are completely empty. And
Oh,
there's
yeah.
toilet paper right there.
So if we were an employer and we weren't McGohan Brabender and we came to you and said, hey, we've got this entitlement, what are the 3 things that you would say, this is where you start, and here's 3 things you can do?
You start with the customer because everything in your company is designed around the customer. The hours that the building is open, the hours of contact that your customer is going to be coming to you. If you have a global customer, you're going to have people who have to be working at off-time hours. There's no such thing anymore. We really are somewhat of a 24/7 type of environment. So telling them why, this is why we have these policies, is because of the customer. Then really talking about what tools do we provide to you to help you take care of our customer. We have sick time because we want you to get healthy again. We have all of these electronic technology tools. Every time you update Microsoft, that costs money. Every time somebody wants a new computer, that costs money. So what are the tools that we're giving you, and how do we expect you to use them? Also, to have very specific goals, things that people have to obtain. And why? Because if we don't achieve our goals, we don't have money to invest in the employees and to invest in our customers. We don't tell those stories. And Scott, what you just said, model the behavior you want to see repeated.
Lead by example.
So in other words, what you're saying is it's not rocket science.
No.
It's not rocket scientists, but we believe that, well, why didn't they learn that in college? Or why didn't their parents teach them that? Or why do we have to do this? Because you were put in that place at that time to educate that individual to help them become better, to help them to serve our community better, to help our community, to help our world. So for us to say, oh, that's not my job, that's HR, or that's their manager, or that's their parents, or why didn't they learn about return on investment in college when they have a business degree? No. You really, when an employee comes in, you have to assume they don't know what you want them to know.
Yep. Communication.
So those onboarding programs that we sort of did away with, those are important. I mean, Scott, you remember the days where people went through like a year of training before they went into their job in sales or manufacturing, etc.
Oh, now we just throw them in the deep end.
We throw them in the deep end. We throw them in the deep end, and they're not educated enough to be grateful.
Yep.
And we're fighting this saturation of you deserve.
Well, it just takes, really what we're hearing, everything you're saying is, it just takes the biggest commodity that we all have. It just takes time, eyeballs, communication, and just talking to people. Can't thank you enough for everything that you do. It's a really sensitive subject. So people, when you say entitlement, their mind splinters and goes a myriad of directions.
No, it's always them.
Exactly.
They're the ones that are entitled. I'm not. When all of us in some way or another really do feel entitled.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
so you say if you're going to point your fingers to the east, the west, the north, and the south, we should probably end up in the center of our chest.
What is the old quote? We have met the enemy, and he is us.
Yes, exactly. Well, if you want to email me, you can email me at scott@healthierbirthdays.com or
Kenzie at healthierbirthdays.com.
And thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
And we're excited to have you back as well.
We'll have you back for sure.
Okay, perfect. And please do let the people at McGohan Brabender at Side Effects know, what are the topics you want to learn about?
Yep.
What are the things that are going on in your organizations or your families or even society that you need help with?
And we'll answer those questions for you. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.